This week, we're winding back to almost the start of the 80s to look at an Aussie band that has been tragically overlooked by the rest of the world. A band with a singer who has an unmatched pedigree in rock and roll music and an album that is one of the best ever released in Australia. I'm talking about Mondo Rock and their 1981 hit, Summer of 81.
Waiting for the countdown in the summer of 81. Sign up or go underground in the summer of 81.
So write me a letter and mail it today as we look at this week's 80s Song of the Day. In the summer of 81, Dreamworld opened on the Gold Coast. The Space Shuttle Colombia launched for the second time, making it the first time that anyone flew in a second-hand spaceship. And Mondo Rock released their album Chemistry, cementing their reputation as one of Australia's best bands. The album hit number 3 on the Australian album chart and saw the band win 2 awards at the Countdown Awards, Album of the Year and Best Australian Songwriter, going to the band's co-founder Eric McCusker. But it's a long way to the shop if you want a sausage roll, and it's a long way to Mondo Rock in the history of Aussie rock and roll. So to tell the story of Mondo Rock, we really need to start with Ross Wilson. Ross Wilson started singing in a church choir, stating that his mother wasn't particularly religious, but she loved singing, and so she'd find the church with the best choir and join that. When they got old enough, she started taking Wilson and his brother along, and they became part of an Anglican boys' choir. It was also where Ross figured out the relationship between performing and earning money. They would sing at weddings on Saturdays, and the choir members were paid $1 or something, so Wilson quickly lost any inhibitions about performing in front of others. Wilson formed his first band while still in school. The Pink Finks, as they were known. They made a record and they released it. There were 4 singles, and they did have some local chart success in Melbourne. You can find their whole album on YouTube. At the time, they were billed as the youngest ever rock and roll band. Wilson was about 16, but the youngest band member was just turning 13. After that, Wilson eventually went on to form Daddy Cool. Active from 1970 to 1975, Daddy Cool is, I want to say, best known for, but in reality, they are synonymous with their debut single, Eagle Rock, released in 1971. Eagle Rock was a staple of Aussie radio, and I'm pretty sure it was played at every wedding I've ever attended. Daddy Cool were inducted into the Australian Recording Industry Association Hall of Fame in 2006, and it's from this pedigree that Mondo Rock was formed. So, pretty much right after Daddy Cool was disbanded, Ross Wilson went on to form Mondo Rock. Wilson was quoted as saying that Daddy Cool was like going to rock and roll high school, and Mondo Rock, we went to university, a little tertiary education of rock and roll. Wilson, along with Eric McCusker, were the chief songwriters, and they formed the core of the group, and together they went on to write many of the band's biggest hits. Primal Park was their first album, released in 1979. It only went to number 40 on the charts, and the album is an odd mix of live recordings and studio tracks. They released a couple of singles, Searching for My Baby and the title track Primal Park, but neither of which charted. Their second album, Chemistry, fared much, much better. It was released in July of 1981, spent 33 weeks on the Australian charts, and peaked at number 3. Chemistry saw a number of successful singles, including the slow ballad State of the Heart.
It's just the state of the heart. I'm waiting here for you in the state I'm in.
The title track Chemistry.
If the chemistry is right, if the chemistry is there,
Cool World.
I might break into your cool world, break into your cool world.
And our song of the day, Summer of 81. State of the Heart and Cool World were top 10 hits. Chemistry made it to 20, but for some reason, Summer of 81 only got to 31. And tragically, none of Mondo Rock's songs had any real chart impact anywhere in the world except Australia, with the minor exception of their biggest hit, 1983's Come Said the Boy, which got to 43 in New Zealand, as well as taking the number 2 spot here in Australia. And they did have a much later song, Primitive Love Rights, which had some minor chart success in New Zealand and in the USA. I wanted to go with Summer of 81 as my choice for the song of the day because it's probably the most overlooked of their songs. Of all the singles from Chemistry, it is the most up-tempo one. It's got a really nice guitar hook, and there's a little bit of story behind the song itself.
We stood on the balcony and we watched it together. We were modern men and women who changed like the weather. We were one day blowing hot, the next day blowing cold. One day growing restless, the next day growing old.
It was written by guitarist Eric McCusker, who explains, "This came from a dream about the end of the world. It's about what you'd say to your lover when you found out that the missiles were on their way." The lyric doesn't make linear sense, but the scenes and the imagery and the music, they conjure a kind of tragic romantic dreamscape. In the video, there is a repeated motif of Wilson and McCusker turning toward the horizon to witness a blinding white flash. Presumably that's the atom bombs going off, yeah, but done in a semi-metaphorical way to keep the video from being too on the nose.
Waiting for the countdown in the summer of 81.
And what would an Aussie summer be without cricket? McCusker slips in a cricket metaphor as well. "I'll be handing you the ashes. I want to thank you for the game."
There's no time for the letter, and there's no one on the phone. So I'll pretend that we're together. I don't want to go alone. No.
So there you have it. Summer of 81 by Mondo Rock. That's your 80s song of the day. I hope you enjoy it. And if you're growing restless for more 80s music, you can join me next time for another 80s song of the day.